Imagine that you are a second grade teacher. Meeting the needs of each unique student is difficult. With so little precious time in the day, it seems impossible to fit it all into your schedule. But is it? Before the bell even rings, you search Raz Plus's rich bank of resources for cause and effect, a skill your students need to improve upon. You begin the first day's lesson with whole class instruction. With printable and projectable texts, it's easy for every student to follow along. Later, you switch your content to small group collaboration. Using the ebook tools on their devices, each student interacts closely with the text. Normally, Jaleesa is confident, but today she seems disappointed, nervous, and shy. Oh, that's why. Jaleesa has scored poorly in recent weeks on the cause and effect quiz questions. The students return from lunch. While working with Jaleesa, you see her already begin to gain proficiency and confidence in her work. Meanwhile, you overhear Carson and Nigh discuss whether or not white chocolate is actually chocolate. Inspiration strikes. Knowing that Raz Plus contains a project-based learning pack on chocolate, you present the resources as an optional project for interested students. The final bell rings and the students wave goodbye, but your day isn't done quite yet. You find the chocolate project-based learning pack on Raz Plus and easily assign the pack to the group. Then, you write a quick message to Nigh, complimenting her recent work. Finally, you access your file cabinet and locate your folders. Animal habitats is your next unit, so you decide to assign all of the ebooks to get students interested and excited about this new topic. It was a busy day, but with a little help from Raz Plus, you were able to meet every need for every student.
Science is powered by curiosity and imagination. That sense of wonder begins in your classroom. Science A to Z is a one-of-a-kind resource with an extensive collection of multi-level texts and hands-on experiments to create a passion for science in your students. High-interest materials that get kids reading, thinking, and doing science. Cultivate their curiosity. Inspire the next generation. Transform the future. Start your free 2-week trial today.
Blessed Friday morning, everyone, and welcome to the Learning A to Z's academic learning series organized by FNJ De Jesus Incorporated, entitled Essential Learning in an Era of Distance Education. Before we start today's webinar, may I invite everyone for a very short prayer for thanksgiving, blessing, and guidance. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, we praise and thank you for this event and for your purpose for it. We thank you for this gathering and your divine agenda. We pray, Father, that that your will be done on this event. We humbly ask that you bless our important speaker this morning for her efforts and kindness to be with all of us. Father, please take what we have prepared and multiply all our efforts. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Blanket us, Father, with clear mind, pure heart, and keep love and compassion at the forefront of our minds. Lift our eyes to seek you first today and always, surrendering our need to achieve, understand, and be known. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the academic learning series of Learning A to Z, entitled Essential Learning in the Era of Distance Education. This series is again organized by FNJ De Jesus Incorporated, and I'm Minerva De Jesus, and I will be your host for today's event. Let me first introduce to you briefly about the company behind this learning event series. First is FNJ De Jesus Incorporated. It's a 45-year-old company, primarily distributing and importing educational materials to schools, colleges, universities, and other educational institutions. Our founders are Mr. Fidel De Jesus and Mrs. Jovita Bing De Jesus. FNJ De Jesus is an advocate of best practice programs in the Philippines with learning solutions from around the world. Learning A to Z is part of the Cambium Learning Group. It's the Education Essentials Company and was created back in 2002. In Cambium Learning, across all areas of their organization, they deliver technology solutions that emphasize the elements that are most essential to education success: simply, certainty, and now. And F&J is proud to be an exclusive partner of Learning A to Z in the Philippines and Philippine market overseas. F&J De Jesus offers these products and learning solutions. We have the library and academic and professional books for K to 12, tertiary and professional markets, award-winning K to 12 and best practice programs that guarantees efficacy and ease of use. Among others are our learning solutions from Learning A to Z. We have the RAS Plus, it's a blended digital reading program, and Science A to Z, a blended digital integrated science and literacy program. Other products of LAZ are the following. We have the Head Sprout. It's an award-winning emergent reader program for pre-kinder to grade 2. We have Writing A to Z. It's an open-level writing program that delivers leveled resources to improve students' writing skills. We have the Vocabulary A to Z. It's an online resource that allows teachers to easily teach kinder to grade 6 vocabulary. We also have the EAL edition that provides research-based resources for teaching English language learners. And of course, the RAS Plus, Connected Classroom, delivers resources and tools to accelerate and personalize training. F&J, again, is the exclusive partner of Learning A to Z in the Philippines and the Philippine market overseas. Also, this event is in cooperation with the National Book Development Board and the Inner Wheel Clubs of the Philippines Incorporated, District 383. For our for today's learning event, we are fortunate and honored to have an international speaker, Dr. Jenny Nigh. Dr. Nigh has been involved in the field of education for 20 years, and she has begun her career as an elementary teacher and literacy specialist. She taught a variety of undergraduate and graduate level courses at Youngstown State University and served as president for the Ohio Literacy Association. Jennifer has presented at numerous national and international conferences and is also a published author. In her present role as Director, International Academics and Curriculum at Learning A to Z, Jennifer believes in the expertise of the teacher and the power of literacy and language. Jennifer's mission is to empower educators around the world with the knowledge, resources, and research that can help every student reach their fullest potential. Jennifer earned her PhD in curriculum and instruction literacy from Kent State University, where her research focuses on teaching writing in online spaces. It is my pleasure, everyone, to introduce this morning's speaker, Dr. Jennifer Nigh.
All right. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. And to everybody that is joining us this morning, thank you so much. We are so excited to have you with us today. And I am thrilled to be joining you from the States today to talk about one of my favorite topics. And that, of course, is how to meet our learning standards in online environments. Now, I want to take a moment to just thank my colleagues at F&J for hosting this webinar and for inviting us to participate in it today. They are a great support in your region, and we are very thankful for this opportunity. Now, a couple things before we get started. We are using Zoom meeting tonight, which is a little bit different than Zoom webinar if you're more familiar with that. So what we're going to ask is that you leverage the tools that you see here on the screen. Particularly, we would love for you to use this chat box today. I'm going to be asking some questions of you and looking for your responses. But more importantly, you all bring such a wealth of knowledge and expertise to these types of sessions. And my hope is that you share that knowledge and expertise throughout the duration of the session. So have that chat box up and ready to go. And please feel free to participate as we go through the next 45 minutes together. Also, please know that this session is being recorded and can be made available to you after if you would like to view it again or share it with any of your colleagues. And finally, if you run into any technological issues, I do have my colleagues that are helping moderate the chat, but you might also want to make note of the Zoom support website that I have here up on the screen. If you have any microphone or audio issues, definitely check out that website for some troubleshooting support. Now, we also like to mention at Learning A to Z that we follow ISTE's standards for digital teaching and digital learning. And what those standards do is they remind us of our responsibilities as digital learners, digital leaders, digital citizens, and digital collaborators. And that goes back to being a participant, sharing your expertise, and really making the most out of this session as possible. All right, everybody. So with all of that said, what are we doing here today? What hopefully got you interested and excited to join this webinar on a Friday morning? You guys are so close to your weekends. So what our target is for today is we're going to discover how RAS Plus and Science A to Z can be used in a cross-curricular approach to meet your essential competencies in a distance learning setting. So let's break that down a little bit. So I want everybody to reflect on the last year and a half. As a global community, we have all experienced something we may never have ever anticipated. And as educators and as lead learners in school, that has brought us to a situation where we're constantly considering how can we meet our students' essential learning competencies? Because we recognize that learning is not the same when we're not with our students each and every day. And even when we are with our students each and every day, we know that there are many other things that are going on right now that are contributing perhaps to learning loss or contributing to some of the challenges our students are facing. So we're thinking about these essential learning competencies and we're thinking about how we can meet these in a very unique setting during a very unique time. Now, I don't know about all of you, but during my teacher training, which was, 20 years ago, I'm dating myself a little bit, but 20 years ago, I was taught how to teach my students face to face. We never had any type of training or experiences for how I can teach my students essential competencies and beyond in a distance learning setting. Because of that, I experienced a huge learning curve. And in that learning curve, I regularly experienced some challenges. So I'm curious, teachers and leaders, have you also experienced some challenges in the last year when you're trying to teach the essential learning competencies in a distance learning setting? If you have, I want you to take a moment to reflect on some of those challenges, and I'd like you to share a couple of them in the chat box. So grab that chat box and respond to this question. What challenges did you or are you currently facing when teaching your students in a distance learning environment? Tell me what your thoughts are. So I'm going to be looking at that chat box. And I see lots of good mornings. So good morning to everybody. Good. Dolores, thank you for that first response. Assessment. Excellent. Hannah says explaining hands-on projects through the screen. Yes. Ooh, building rapport. Student engagement, Ryan says. Yes. Understanding that is not guaranteed. You got it. Oh, Mary Eileen, you've got my biggest challenge. Time. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Perla, rapport. Absolutely. Platforms. Maria, unstable connections. Yes. How about Jamaica's? Mine too. I'm not the most techie person, so I struggle with some of those things. Absolutely. Walter also comments on student engagement, competencies. Look at all of these challenges, ladies and gentlemen. This just validates exactly what I experienced also. But the good news is, ladies and gentlemen, that even with all of those challenges that we faced or perhaps are currently facing, especially in a distance learning environment, we've learned a lot of lessons, right? This last year has really taught us a lot. It has also taught us something that has become quite a global trend. And I kind of laugh because it's not a new trend. It's something that's being revisited. But it's something that we're finding is a good response to some of these challenges that we face. And so one of those solutions that we've learned in the last year and a half that can support some of those challenges while helping us teach our essential learning competencies in a distance education environment is something we like to call cross-curricular teaching and learning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, many of you might be saying that's nothing new. And you're right, it's not something new. But it is a concept that kind of fell out of favor for a little while, or maybe just wasn't implemented with fidelity or as much as it could have been. But we're finding now in this distance learning environment, and we're finding these limitations and those challenges you just mentioned, that we need to have better solutions for not only meeting our essential learning competencies, but making sure that we can fill those gaps that our students are going to have while bringing them to the next level. So not only does cross-curricular teaching and learning do those things, but it also has some additional benefits. So cross-curricular teaching and learning is gaining attraction again because it supports deeper learning of discipline area skills, topical content, and 21st century competencies. Cross-curricular teaching and learning ensures greater collaboration and consistency across educators. It also, what some of you mentioned as a challenge, creates greater motivation to learn and engagement in learning. So already just talking about those research and that evidence about cross-curricular teaching and learning, we know that this could be an approach that really supports some of those challenges while ensuring you're meeting those core competencies. Now, to help us conceptualize cross-curricular teaching and learning a little bit more, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my experience as a student. And perhaps this kind of represents what you also experienced as a student. So when I was in school, all the way from 5 years old, primary age, all the way through graduate school, my learning was very siloed. And what I mean by that is that at a given point in time during the school day, I learned math. At another specified time, I learned concepts related to English language arts. At another time, I learned concepts related to science, so on and so forth. There wasn't a lot of cohesiveness between that learning. It was very much in its own space. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've experienced being a student and learning in that way, give me a smiley face in the chat box. Does that kind of represent how you learned as a student and how you were also taught? If so, give me a smiley face in the chat box. So I know every Monday morning we started with math. Yeah, look at those smiley faces. Yep, Eden and Rosemary, Geraldine, yep, EJ, all those smiley faces coming. This is very common no matter where we are in the world. And really, this is still common today, and which is why that cross-curricular approach is resurfacing with a vengeance. Now, I do want to say that learning and teaching in this way is not inherently wrong. It's not bad. It just doesn't quite support some of the challenges we're now facing. And it doesn't offer students the opportunity to go deeper. So instead, it's being proposed that we use more of a cross-curricular approach. Now, there's all kinds of research that we can go into, but to put it simply, a cross-curricular approach kind of consolidates all of your efforts and student learning across the many disciplines. Now, I just listed a couple of the major ones, but we could put art in there. We could put social emotional, which is really important. We can put physical. Any of those can tie in to this cross-curricular approach. So instead of the skills and the knowledge and the strategies being taught in isolated times and in isolated classrooms, there's cohesiveness. There is connections between what is taught in math and what is taught in language arts and science and so on and so forth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know that all these things in education always sound great. But if you are like me, I always said, okay, that sounds good, but I want to know how, and I want to know with what. How am I going to take these ideas and actually transfer them into my classroom? And that's exactly what I want to share with you today. I want to share with you some ideas for how you can meet your core competencies, but take this cross-curricular approach in an online learning environment. So let's start with the with what. What am I going to use to actually do this with efficiency and with effectiveness? So two of the programs that we already mentioned that I'm going to leverage today to show you how you can begin implementing a cross-curricular approach to meet your core competencies in science and language arts in a cross-curricular approach is RAS Plus and Science A to Z. Now, if anybody has used RAS Plus or Science A to Z, can you give me a yes in the chat box? Let me see if I have any current users in the audience today. Give me a yes. Rosalind says yes. Gina Marie, wonderful. Maria, Hannah, fabulous. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you put a yes in the chat box, I'm really going to hope that you can share some of your tips and tricks and maybe some of the special resources you use and have found success with. Now, for those of you that are brand new to RAS Plus and Science A to Z, let me give you a very brief overview so that you understand where these resources are coming from. Now, both RAS Plus and Science A to Z, where I'm pulling these resources and ideas from, are digital programs that strengthen what you're teaching. So it's a toolbox for you, the teachers, in order to support your science, your English language arts, and even other content areas like social emotional learning, social studies, etc. It also gives your students purposeful practice with developmentally appropriate resources. Now, one of the things that really supports your online learning with both of these programs is that the resources come in multiple formats. So you're going to see during my demo today is that you can access these resources from mobile devices, which really supports that students that don't have a lot of internet connection, they can oftentimes access this on mobile devices, or they can access it from any online browser, as can you. You'll also find that the resources are printable, so they can be printed if need be to make packets, or they can also be used to upload to a learning management system like Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Seesaw, anything that you may use at your school. And then finally, they're projectable. I think if you've not seen the projectable resources yet, you're going to be so excited because you're going to see the possibilities, especially for synchronous instruction. Now, just a couple features of RAS Plus is that there's over 50,000 resources. So teachers, that's a lot. That not only supports your teaching of science content, but it's also going to support your all domains of literacy and language, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Those resources have assignment capabilities, collaboration activities with file cabinets, and data to support your future instruction. And Science A to Z is exactly the same. So it's going to give you additional multi-level resources in the domains of life science, earth and space science, physical science, engineering, and process science. I know someone mentioned the need to help students do things hands-on. Science A to Z is going to have a lot of that to support the doing of science. Okay. All right. So now that we've got a quick overview of what resources can I use to do all of this, let's talk about how. How can I now take this information and very easily put it into my distance learning classroom? So to do that, I'm going to share with you an analogy of a race. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you a secret. I've actually never run a race in my life. Maybe when I was a kid, but definitely not as an adult. And I probably will never run a race in my life. But I know that if I was to run a race, that I would need to prepare for that race. There is no way I'd be able to just put on my tennis shoes and go out and do a good job. I would need to prepare for that. I would then need to experience the race. And I would also need to hopefully cross the finish line and prepare to do it again and do it even better. So that process that we go through to perhaps run a race is exactly how I think of my teaching when I was in the classroom. I prepared, I taught, I got to the finish line and I assessed, and then I reflected to do it again. So let's keep that analogy in our mind as we look at how we can take these resources and put them into practice. So let's start with that preparation. So one of my first recommendations to you as you're considering how to teach in a cross-curricular approach while meeting those core competencies in a distance learning environment is to consider what your end goal is. When your students reach that finish line and they cross over from that race, what do you want them to have achieved? Those expectations are where you work backwards from. When I was planning for cross-curricular instruction, I liked to consider both content objectives, language objectives, and content concepts. Now, those are going to all wrap up into those core competencies and maybe even beyond. You know your core competencies that are put forth by your Department of Education better than I do. So those are going to likely drive what the finish line looks like for your students. But as you're considering what you want your students to know and be able to do, you also need to consider how you're going to determine that. So while assessment typically comes during your teaching and at the very end, if it's summative, you need to consider how you're going to evaluate that in the very beginning. That is part of your preparation. And what's great is I'm going to show you how RAS Plus and Science A to Z can support that. But I want you to be thinking of those things as you're preparing for this experience. Now, once you know what you want your students to be able to accomplish at the end, now comes the fun part. This is where we as educators excel, because this is where we develop exciting and engaging experiences. And the same thing can be done in an online setting. So one of the things that I encourage you to do if you want to try to integrate your content and your essential standards is grouping those according to an essential question. So you can see that as my first bullet point here. When you consider an essential question, it is not a question that can be answered yes or no. It is not a question that can be answered by reading one book or one passage or doing one activity. An essential question should require analysis, evaluation, and some deep thinking and collaboration. So for me, when I was planning cross-curricular experiences, this was actually probably one of the most challenging things for me, is to really come up with a good question. But once you come up with some of those good questions, then you're able to build all of your content up to that while checking off your standards. Now, I got a little tip for you all. When we go into RAS Plus and Science A to Z, many of the resources are built upon essential questions. So if you struggle with coming up with essential questions like I did, you can just go right into RAS Plus and Science A to Z, and you can just steal some of the ones that they're using. So you can see right here, I have how can we solve the problem of habitat loss? I adapted that right from RAS Plus and Science A to Z. Took me nothing more than a couple seconds and I was able to move on. Now, in addition to coming up with your essential question, you're going to want to find an anchor text. Now, an anchor text is going to have all of that core knowledge that your students need in order to be successful with all the other experiences that they're going to have. Oftentimes, this is going to be a nonfiction or informational text, especially if your essential question is science in nature, which is our example tonight. So I'm going to real quickly jump over to RAS Plus and Science A to Z, and I'm going to show you two ways that you can look for anchor text that can drive the foundational knowledge for your students to answer their questions. So if everybody can, I just want to make sure that we switched from my PowerPoint to the RAS Plus page. Can somebody just give me a smiley face in the chat box if you're seeing this pink RAS Plus page? Hannah, thank you very much. Okay. So remember, right now we're considering an anchor text, and I just want to show you how coming up with an anchor text is super easy using these two products. So first of all, in RAS Plus, you can search for any topic. So tonight I'm using the example of habitats. So I can simply type in habitats and the system is going to pull for me all the different resources, over 549 of them, that I can look at in order to determine if it's a good resource that I want to use for my experience. Now, another thing that you can do if you don't want to use the search bar is you can go into this resources tab and you can go into this second drawer called leveled text. Now you'll notice that when you go into level text, ladies and gentlemen, there's an entire area for content areas. So RAS Plus is not just supporting literacy and language, it is supporting those content areas too. So these are great resources to use for those anchor texts. Now, because RAS Plus and Science A to Z work seamlessly together, I'm going to go ahead and toggle right over to Science A to Z. And I'm going to locate that same exact resources drawer. And in that resources drawer, I'm going to go ahead and just open up a random unit under the life cycles unit or life cycles domain. So I'll go ahead, since we're talking about habitats, what do you know? There's habitats right there. And if I scroll down just a little bit, there's a differentiated unit nonfiction book. These are fantastic to be able to use for that anchor text to really build your students' background knowledge, essential knowledge, and vocabulary. Okay. All right. So once we have our essential question and once we have our anchor text, then we can continue to locate resources in order to support all of those experiences. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was the teacher that I had stuff everywhere. I would find things, I would bring it into my classroom, and then I would be looking for it and be like, where did that go? So I really had to learn, especially for cross-curricular teaching and learning, to organize my resources so that I can be more efficient and more effective. So no worries about that, because both Science A to Z and RAS Plus can support you with the organization of your resources as you're planning for your unit of instruction. So you'll notice, ladies and gentlemen, that Science A to Z has a filing cabinet, and so does RAS Plus. Now, this filing cabinet is so helpful because you can organize it any way that you want. So you're seeing my filing cabinet right now, ladies and gentlemen, and you can see all these different folders I created, but I created a folder just for tonight, and I labeled that folder with my essential question. How can we solve the problem of habitat loss? Now, once I create that folder, ladies and gentlemen, anytime that I find a resource in RAS Plus or Science A to Z, I can save it directly to my file. Now, not only is that going to help me to more efficiently get resources for teaching and to get resources in my students' hands for practice, but wait till you see what else it does. Remember, we said that cross-curricular teaching consolidates the efforts of many teachers. So for example, let's say that my colleague Jay here in the audience, we're both teaching a particular grade level in our school. We share maybe some of the same students, and we're sharing some of the same core competencies that we're needing to teach. So what I can do with my colleague Jay is that any folder that I create, when I click on these three dots, I can share that folder with my colleague or colleagues. So what's great about that, especially in a distance learning setting, is that it helps you work smarter, not harder, and saves you a lot of time. So anything that you share with your colleagues, they're going to have access to, and hopefully they share their resources with you. And that really creates that cohesion with that cross-curricular approach to teaching and learning. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's do a quick check-in real quick. Give me a smiley face if you like what you're seeing so far and if you're doing okay. Great, I'm seeing lots of smiley faces coming on. Fabulous. All right, excellent. Don't forget everybody, feel free to share your expertise also. Okay, so now that we saw where we can get some anchor text and we saw how we can use the filing cabinet briefly, we need to also remember that we not only need to prepare ourselves for this unit, but we also need to prepare our students. Research has shown that this is one of the spaces in our instructional cycle that we spend the least amount of time when really we should be spending some of the most valuable time. So as we're preparing our students to engage in this cross-curricular experience, We need to make sure that we help students link their learning. We understand what they already know. We need to make sure that we pre-teach vocabulary. We need to make sure that we gather and build background knowledge on the topic that we're going to be teaching. And most importantly, just like in any race, we need to start getting the adrenaline flowing. And what do I mean by that? We run into a huge problem, especially online, with engagement and sustaining learning. One of the best ways to do that is to get students excited from the very beginning. Get them engaged, get them questioning, get them thinking. So I have a little activity that I like to do using Science A to Z called Watch and Wonder. So feel free, if you want to take any notes, you can do this really with anything. You can incorporate this in many ways, but it's designed to really get kids excited about what's to come. So what happens in a Watch and Wonder experience? So what I do with a Watch and Wonder is that I choose some Science A to Z videos that are aligned to my essential question. So when I go into Science A to Z, you'll see that under that resources tab, there is an area called activities, and you'll see that there's an area for science videos. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these videos are organized according to the domains of science, and they're organized according to these grade level bands. Don't worry about those grade level bands. You can use these videos across any level. But what I would do, ladies and gentlemen, is that for the Watch and Wonder, I would tell my students that I'm going to show them a couple short videos. And there's going to be no sound or audio to these videos. But what they should be doing is they should be jotting down things they wonder. What is something that intrigues them? What is something that gets them excited or they're questioning? So I might, for example, just play this first video, A Bear Down Under. And I can do that synchronously in my classroom by clicking on the preview button and sharing my screen just like I'm doing with you right now. So I would tell my students, what do you see happening here? What are you wondering about? What questions might you have? I am not giving them any right or wrong answers, and there really is no right or wrong answers. I'm just starting to spark that interest. Now I would probably want to show them another one. And remember, these are all rolling up into my essential question eventually. So maybe I go into another one and I find, there's one on coral reefs around here, coral reefs. So maybe I show them this coral reef video and I ask them to do the same thing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, once I show my kids those videos in a synchronous session and I ask them to jot down in the chat box or on a piece of paper what they wonder, I then have a discussion with them and I lead them to being able to see the connections between their wonderings and the essential question we're going to answer throughout the duration of our experience. And that's when I would introduce that essential question. So this is just a quick activity leveraging resources you already have with just a couple clicks, but to get them engaged and get them excited. Okay. All right, so now we've just done the big chunk of the work. We planned for our experience, we got our students ready to go, and now we're off. While we run this race, while we teach this cross-curriculum or cross-curricular experience, we really have to ensure that we are providing systematic and explicit instruction. This is more important than ever before in an online environment because we're faced with the challenge of time. So we have to be very purposeful and explicit and systematic in our instruction, but we have to also ensure that we're giving students opportunities for collaboration and purposeful practice. So some of the ways that I like to do that when I'm instructing is that I like to focus my core competency instruction in a whole group setting. So I like to be able to teach synchronously and really focus on those skills that I need all of my students to have as a baseline for them to go to the next level. Now, what's great about both Science A to Z and RAS Plus is the different formats that these resources come in. So remember I mentioned those formats that the resources come in. This is going to come in handy for you right now while you're providing explicit whole group instruction. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to search for habitats in RAS Plus, and I'm going to locate a resource that I want to use. In this case, I'm going to use this book, Deep in the Ocean. Now, anytime that you find a resource, you'll see that that resource is printable. So again, you can print it out. You can download it and upload it into a learning management system. Or for your synchronous instruction, your whole group instruction, anytime that you see this projectable sign, you can project that resource just like I'm doing now, and it automatically has these e-tools that allow for engagement. So now with just a couple clicks, I can go through this book and I can say, okay, boys and girls, as we're getting started with this unit, we're going to talk about some of the vocabulary that's in here. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to have Leah read this passage. And as Leah's reading this passage, I want everybody else in the chat box to be writing words that they don't know or they want to learn more about. And then as I'm going through that experience, I can grab my stamper tool and I can put check marks by words that I know we need to focus on. Really, whatever you want to do with this, ladies and gentlemen, it's available because you can use those projectable resources. So fantastic for synchronous whole group instruction to really meet those core competencies put forth by your Department of Ed. Now, in addition to whole group instruction, you also want to the best of your ability, leverage small group synchronous breakouts. And I recognize that this is probably one of the most challenging parts of synchronous instruction, especially if technology doesn't naturally allow for that feature. But if it is possible, you want to make sure during any type of learning, but especially during cross-curricular where they're answering an essential question, that they can have opportunities to collaborate and apply the core competencies to answer that core question. Now, there's a lot of resources in RAS Plus that can be leveraged for small group purposeful practice and application. So a couple things that I just want to make note of for you tonight is that both RAS Plus and Science A to Z have project-based learning ready to go for you. So if you're interested in project-based learning, you can go down in RAS Plus resources drawer to the drawer called Focused Instruction, and you'll see an area for project-based learning. This will give you everything that you need in order to support the application of those core competencies that you taught during your whole group session, but it allows students to be able to go a little bit deeper with it as they aim to answer those essential questions. Project-based learning is also available in Science A to Z. So if I go to Science A to Z, again, I'm going to go to that resources tab. And I can go down to the activities drawer, and there's project-based learning packs. Again, everything that you need is already there to really support those skills and strategies. Okay. Now, in addition, ladies and gentlemen, and I know we're going fast tonight, so please feel free to know that we can always extend this conversation and answer some questions as we keep going. In addition to the whole group and small group, we need to also make sure that there's independent practice time. And this is where your asynchronous instruction comes in. So while you are supporting asynchronous instruction, you again want to really leverage those file cabinets that you created earlier. So I'm going to go back into RAS Plus here, and I'm going to go right back to that folder that I created for this evening or this morning. It's evening here. So I'm going to go back into my filing cabinet. And I'm going to locate my how can we solve the problem of habitat loss. And notice that in any of these folders that I created, there's a link for assign resources. So anytime that you populate a folder of resources, which I recommend you do, remember that you can share those with your colleagues, but you can also assign all of these resources in bulk to your students. Simply by clicking that assign resources, you can determine what activities you want your students to do with them, who you want it to go to, and you can even title your assignment, send a message to your student, and assign a due date. This, ladies and gentlemen, should be the resources you're assigning for that extended, independent, asynchronous practice. All those resources that you assign should tie up to building the knowledge so that the students can answer that essential question while applying all of those core competencies that they're learning in your whole group instruction. Okay. All right. So now, ladies and gentlemen, that we have planned, we've taught, we ran our race, we are going to cross the finish line. And this, of course, is the best part. This is where we make sure that our students have met all of those learning outcomes that we planned for way at the beginning. Now, what's great about both RAS Plus and Science A to Z is that both of them come with a variety of assessments that are both digital and in a traditional face-to-face setting. So if you're in RAS Plus, you can check out this assessments drawer. Now, the assessments that are in here are more designed to assess your students' literacy and language. But remember, we're doing cross-curricular. So that is going to be critical for that approach, but it's also going to be critical for them as they develop as scientists also. Now for Science A to Z, those assessments are built into every single unit, okay? So your students are going to constantly be being assessed on their science content and their science skills through the science and or through the different unit resources that you're using. Also, ladies and gentlemen, the one thing I just realized I forgot to mention is that going back to when you're assigning asynchronous resources, I know that being hands-on with science is really hard in an online environment. So in Science A to Z, every unit comes with process activities. These process activities can be sent home to easily do out asynchronously. They're already done for you and they only use common resources found in any home, like paper towels and spoons and those types of things. So you have those, but you also have, to help students do science, you can also assign to them under the science and literacy, or I'm sorry, under activities, there's interactive science lessons. So these can be assigned to students also asynchronously so that they can move through e-learning modules and actually apply that knowledge, okay? So I apologize, I forgot to mention that. All right, going very quickly back to our finish line. All right, we're getting to the finish line here. We're crossing it. We know that both Science A to Z and RAS Plus have a lot of assessments, but I also want you to know they have a lot of data. So both Science A to Z and RAS Plus data can be accessed through the Manage Students report or Manage Students tab under Reports. Okay. Now, when you go to Reports, as your students have been using these programs, you're going to be able to access a variety of things, such as their activity. We want to see what they're doing when we're not next to them. Being able to monitor their activity using digital programs is more important than ever before. So we've got those there. But because we want to be able to ensure our competencies have been met, we can also leverage a skills report. And this skills report can be filtered for both RAS Plus and Science A to Z. And it allows you to also see students' skills and their knowledge on particular topics. So lots of data here as you finish your unit and as your students cross that finish line. Not only do you have assessments at your fingertips, but you also then have the on the spot data to help you make decisions about what next. And that what next is exactly how we finish our experience. We prepare for what's next. We reflect, we continuously engage our students, we change, we adapt, and we grow from there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap this all up very quickly. So, what we've talked about tonight is how we can leverage Science A to Z and RAS Plus as educators to prepare for a cross-curricular approach to learning, which can meet our core competencies but take our students to the next level. We talked about building that essential question, and all of our resources should roll up into that. We talked about how we can use the filing cabinet to collaborate with colleagues and assign resources. We talked about how we can use those resources both synchronously and asynchronously, and of course, also for assessment. Now, very quickly, what I want to do before we go ahead and move into our question and answer part is I just wanted to show you briefly what this looks like from the student's point of view. We spent a lot of time tonight talking about what we're doing as educators, but I want to show you real quickly from a student's point of view. Now, when your students log in from any app or from the app or mobile app or browser, they're going to be able to access both their Science A to Z and RAS Plus from one platform. So it makes for an easy onboarding and easy for parental support. So when your students log in, they'll either be able to click on their science or their reading planet. And both science and reading have different features that can be leveraged for assessment and also for assignments and independent practice. Now, all the resources across RAS Plus and Science A to Z, students can listen to those resources be read aloud. Again, really important for when students are building that background knowledge on a really high level topic. We want them to be confident and comfortable with it. So all of the resources that you assign, they can listen to and be read aloud.
Deep in the ocean. Written deep underwater. Imagine a trip to the deepest part of the ocean.
So you'll see those of you working with English language learners, it's going to track for them so that they can follow along and again, build that confidence, background knowledge, and exposure. In addition to listening to the book be read aloud, students then can open the book or passage or resource just like any other text. But when they do this, they now also have all of these e-tools available to them. They can mark up the text, which we want them to do while they are researching and analyzing and evaluating. They have post-it notes and they have word and reflections journal. But one thing that's really cool and super helpful for online learning is that there's a recording feature. Students can record themselves reading these books out loud. They can record themselves doing a think aloud or asking questions of the author, whatever you want. It's an open recorder that they can listen to play back, or they can send to you as the teacher. So you again have evidence for assessment purposes. Students can also take a quiz on these resources, and they can, and all of the, which filters into that data I mentioned in those reports. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's lots of other fun bells and whistles in here, built-in assessment, built-in incentives to engage them and motivate them. So as students are using this program, they are earning stars and they can spend those stars in the star zone and also work towards e-badges. So lots of fun, engaging things to really get kids motivated and get them involved as you're using these for your experience. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, whoo, I don't know about you, but I feel like I just ran a race because we just went through all kinds of ideas and different ways that hopefully we can leverage these programs. So as I pass it back over to my colleague Minerva, I'm hoping in the chat box you can share with me one idea or one resource that you are excited to try out in your classroom. And as I'm looking for your responses in the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and pass that back over to my colleague.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was such a beautiful and very informative 50-minute presentation of yours. And it's really an honor to have you. You know, our webinar session this morning is such a good timing because our teachers has just most of them just came back from a short vacation. Most of them ended the school year in April, I think. Some even ended May. And this month is really very important to all of them because that's when they get to attend a lot of training and talks that can further help them to this coming school year. And may I first thank the 430 plus educators who stayed with us. I know that some of you are very busy, but you allotted that 1 hour of yours with us. And later, before we end the session, I think one of our colleague Francis will be posting a survey form. If you could just kindly fill it up. I think it will also the basis of our e-certificates for you guys. We will be sending your e-certificate via email. And thank you, our educators here. Jennifer, these are our teachers from different areas here in the Philippines. When the pandemic started, we never thought that our teachers can kick off the pandemic and they were able to, push through with education. And as a parent, speaking for my children who are in sixth grade and ninth grade right now, I know it's difficult also for us parents, but you, dear teachers, made it happen for education to continue. You made us believe that things will happen, and we just have to be really really patient. And this talk of Jennifer will be, and hopefully will be, it will help you this coming school year to enhance your teaching to our students. So I think we have some questions that our teachers have sent us, and I hope that we can render them some answers. One question here is a cross curricular approach a practical method to be taught already in professional teacher training, or does a teacher need to gain experience first before trying it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can't comment on how much it's being taught in teacher ed. I know that I was not taught necessarily to teach that way, which was quite some time ago. But I do know that there has been a resurgence of cross curricular teaching. So I suspect that you would see more of it currently in teacher education or professional learning. But because it is such a researched approach and it's been around for quite some time, you can also find all kinds of articles and webinars and videos online that can continue to inform you about that approach. But I think just like everything that we do as educators, there's some trial and error, right? And that's where that reflection comes in. So, what I encourage you is to start small. Even maybe take, if you have some students that are maybe more accelerated and you're concerned about keeping them engaged, maybe try a little cross curricular unit with them first and then see how you can expand it. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just try it. Try some new things, reflect, change as you need to, and you'll definitely get there.
Yeah, thank you for that. For our second question, is penmanship or handwriting skills as a lesson topic suffer in emphasis with the utilization of computer technology?
Good question. So that's actually a pretty hot topic here in the States, especially related to cursive. So we have gotten away from teaching kids cursive and realized that that was detrimental. And now there is a
Yeah.
resurgence of making sure that we teach them how to write in cursive. Um, Personally, I think we need both. I spend much more of my time typing and needing those keyboarding skills as an adult in the workforce, in university, et cetera. But we need to know how penmanship too. So
Yes.
I think it's not one or the other. I don't think that there's a dichotomy that it should be one or the other. I think in today's world, we need both. And I think we're kind of finding that, as at least here in the States, we kind of bypassed penmanship and just went right to typing. And now we've realized there's some problems there. So we're kind of falling in we're backtracking and making sure that we fill those gaps. So I would say, if possible, value and prioritize both, because our kids are going to need both.
Yeah. I like that question too, because my son goes to a Chinese school, and they really go heavy on Chinese penmanship, and really it's also a challenging part of their lessons. But because of the limited time that is given to them on a weekly basis, the teachers would only give us a worksheet, where our sons be able to practice their handwriting. But of course, it's way different when they're in class, because their Chinese subject comes around 4 times a week,
Hmm.
4 times in a cycle. So yeah, it I agree with that.
Yeah. And
Another
remember,
question.
teachers, if you're taking a cross-curricular approach, handwriting can be woven right into that. That's one of your essential competencies.
Yes.
Then you can make sure that they are writing something and, submitting it to you in email, taking a picture of it, sending it to you in email of whatever activity you're wanting to do. So that can be woven right into that cross-curricular approach.
Yes. Another question here is it going to be practical or necessary to allow students to have their own gadget when face-to-face classes are allowed because of what they got used to now?
So yeah, that's a good question too. Again, I'm going to kind of use, this is my opinion because there's a lot of opinions on this topic. I believe that we're not going to go backwards. I think that devices are part of our life. We're all sitting here. I have my phone sitting right here, and we've got a bunch of devices in the home. I use my devices to work. I use my devices to communicate. I use them personally. I think that we need to teach our students digital literacy, and that requires them to use devices. Does that mean they need to have each individual one at all times? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I do think, again, it's that balance. It's not one or the other. We know they're using them outside of the classroom. We know that they're going to use them for work and career. So our job then is to make sure that they can use them effectively, efficiently, and safely. So teaching that digital literacy, if they have them in the classroom, to do that and really to enhance our learning is always beneficial.
Okay. Oh, this one. We get a lot of questions about what learning management can LAZ be used of. So question here, can LAZ resources be used in Google Classroom?
Yes, they can. Absolutely. So I actually did a session on integrating it into Google Classroom. So without remembering exactly everything, I know the stream on Google Classroom, it was great because there's like think, collaborate, discuss cards. So I encourage teachers to take those think, collaborate, discuss cards and add them to their stream so that students can answer those questions asynchronously and respond to one another. You can then link, if you're using your Google Drive, any of those PDFs can be added to that Google Drive for your students to access right there also. So it can fully integrate into any of those learning management systems.
Yeah. Now we have few minutes left for our last question. Do teachers need training in graphics for creating modules?
Say that one again for me.
Do teachers need training in graphics for creating modules?
Oh, graphics. Okay. So, and let me know if I'm not answering this question appropriately. So, I have zero training in graphics. And I kind of always joke that my PowerPoints represent that. You can always tell when there's somebody that has a lot of training. I try to abide by some of the best practices that I just learned on my own by Googling and reading articles. So, trying to have a lot of images and whatnot. But we do little music to start the day, right? um, so personally, I would love to be better at something like that. So personally, I would love to engage in some training. Do I think it's essential? No, I don't think so. I think as educators, our magic and our expertise lies in how we convey and explain and show things. And an image isn't just going to do that on its own. So the expertise and the power comes from you as the educator, not just what's
Yeah.
on a slide. So that's,
Thank-
but I wish I could myself be better.
Yes, thank you for that. Actually, when we were doing some series last year, we just realized that not only the doctors are the frontliners, but also our teachers, our educators, because this is something new to them, right?
Yep.
It's something that made them shift from paper to glass screen, and for our children, I don't think it's going to be difficult in terms of its usage and skills because they're the glass generation, right? They're used to just snapping and doing like that in the screen of our cell phones and now in iPads. And I'm pretty confident this coming school year our teachers will be more confident in teaching, and I wish and I hope that the teachers will have more time to look at things like this, especially from LAZ, of how it can really help all of you ease the time in preparing your lessons, your modules, because actually that is the role of FNJ, really to assist and provide materials for our teachers to be able to focus mainly on teaching. The content, all the content are there, all the functions are there. It's really just a matter of how you're going to implement it. And so, with that, we would like to express our deepest gratitude and utmost appreciation to Dr. Jennifer Nang for giving her valued time for all of us. And we hope that isn't the last. We hope we will be able to come up with more webinar sessions that will really benefit our teachers. So, thank you again, Dr. Jennifer. We hope that we could be with you again soon. God bless you, and we wish you good health there. And please don't get tired of helping us uplift the our teacher spirit when it comes to their teaching. And thank you for your perseverance in pushing this kind of event for all of us. So with that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jennifer, you want to say some last few words for our
Yep.
teachers?
Yep, just to reiterate, thank you all so much. And on behalf of Learning A to Z, for everything that you do as educators to support students, now more than ever, it is appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. And we are so thankful for you all each and every day. Keep doing it. As someone said in the chat box, keep motivating, keep staying the course, and we'll all get through this together. And again, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your attendance and your excitement. It's been such a pleasure. And I hope that we can all connect again in the near future. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And this concludes our learning event for today. And we hope that this isn't the last. We will try our very best as FNJ Business Incorporated to provide you more uh, confidence and a lot of series of talks that can help you with your teaching. So to know more about F&J's product and services, please visit our website, fjdejesus.ph, and you can email us at sales@fjdejesus.ph. You can also get in touch with us via our mobile number 0917-190-8193. Please do follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So in behalf of F&J, the National Book Development Board, and Inner Wheel Clubs of the Philippines, thank you so much for being with us for this 1 hour short event. And again, before we end this program, our colleague here will post a survey form. So please do fill it up. And again, that will be our basis of your e-certificate. So on behalf of Learning A to Z and FNJ Jesus Incorporated, thank you everyone for spending your morning with us. And we hope that everybody's all in good health and in safety. We're going to kick this pandemic, all of us together. So God bless you all. Thank you.
Science is powered by curiosity and imagination. That sense of wonder begins in your classroom. Science A to Z is a one-of-a-kind resource with an extensive collection of multi-level texts and hands-on experiments to create a passion for science in your students. High-interest materials that get kids reading, thinking, and doing science. Cultivate their curiosity. Inspire the next generation. Transform the future. Start your free 2-week trial today.
Imagine that you are a second grade teacher. Meeting the needs of each unique student is difficult. With so little precious time in the day, it seems impossible to fit it all into your schedule. But is it? Before the bell even rings, you search Raz Plus's rich bank of resources for cause and effect, a skill your students need to improve upon. You begin the first day's lesson with whole class instruction. With printable and projectable texts, it's easy for every student to follow along. Later, you switch your content to small group collaboration. Using the ebook tools on their devices, each student interacts closely with the text. Normally, Jaleesa is confident, but today she seems disappointed, nervous, and shy. Oh, that's why. Jaleesa has scored poorly in recent weeks on the cause and effect quiz questions. The students return from lunch. While working with Jaleesa, you see her already begin to gain proficiency and confidence in her work. Meanwhile, you overhear Carson and Nigh discuss whether or not white chocolate is actually chocolate. Inspiration strikes. Knowing that Raz Plus contains a project-based learning pack on chocolate, you present the resources as an optional project for interested students. The final bell rings and the students wave goodbye, but your day isn't done quite yet. You find the chocolate project-based learning pack on Raz Plus and easily assign the pack to the group. Then, you write a quick message to Nigh, complimenting her recent work. Finally, you access your file cabinet and locate your folders. Animal habitats is your next unit, so you decide to assign all of the ebooks to get students interested and excited about this new topic. It was a busy day, but with a little help from Raz Plus, you were able to meet every need for every student.
Science is powered by curiosity and imagination. That sense of wonder begins in your classroom. Science A to Z is a one-of-a-kind resource with an extensive collection of multi-level texts and hands-on experiments to create a passion for science in your students. High-interest materials that get kids reading, thinking, and doing science. Cultivate their curiosity. Inspire the next generation. Transform the future. Start your free 2-week trial today.
Imagine that you are a second grade teacher. Meeting the needs of each unique student is difficult. With so little precious time in the day, it seems impossible to fit it all into your schedule. But is it? Before the bell even rings, you search Raz Plus's rich bank of resources for cause and effect, a skill your students need to improve upon. You begin the first day's lesson with whole class instruction. With printable and projectable texts, it's easy for every student to follow along. Later, you switch your content to small group collaboration. Using the ebook tools on their devices, each student interacts closely with the text. Normally, Jaleesa is confident, but today she seems disappointed, nervous, and shy. Oh, that's why. Jaleesa has scored poorly in recent weeks on the cause and effect quiz questions. The students return from lunch. While working with Jaleesa, you see her already begin to gain proficiency and confidence in her work. Meanwhile, you overhear Carson and Nigh discuss whether or not white chocolate is actually chocolate. Inspiration strikes. Knowing that Raz Plus contains a project-based learning pack on chocolate, you present the resources as an optional project for interested students. The final bell rings and the students wave goodbye, but your day isn't done quite yet. You find the chocolate project-based learning pack on Raz Plus and easily assign the pack to the group. Then, you write a quick message to Nigh, complimenting her recent work. Finally, you access your file cabinet and locate your folders. Animal habitats is your next unit, so you decide to assign all of the ebooks to get students interested and excited about this new topic. It was a busy day, but with a little help from Raz Plus, you were able to meet every need for every student.